Hello and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. My name is Severin and today we are speaking about the new moon in Aquarius on the 11th of February 2021. And in my eyes, this is probably the most important new moon this year. And I know it's a big statement, but I believe in it. And I will go into a big introduction because it is the most important new moon. And I want to take this opportunity while there's so much energy in Aquarius to elaborate why I feel that this is such an important new moon. And I will go into the chart of today a little bit later. You can go forward. I will actually make a timeline so you find the beginning of the new moon if you want to skip. But are you aware that there are 6 planets in Aquarius right now? 6 planets. I mean, we have 10 planets to work with. Of course, there are other bodies, asteroids and objects in the sky that are not less meaningful and give us more information. But 6 planets in one zodiac sign, I mean, that's a lot. And that also, therefore, is a testimony if astrology actually works or not. Because it doesn't matter if you believe in it or not. Because if you are an energetical being, which I believe I am, then the energy of today is gonna have an impact on me. Or at least I'm gonna have a resonance with it. Maybe I'm very stuck in my personal belief systems, which I, by the way, believe that right now get triggered and pushed and shaken up, and that's why I think this new one is so important, to become aware of a bigger energy that's already alive. And that's also then the energy that astrology finds language for, and that energy is almost like a dance of constantly changing. It's this rhythm of cycles, and that's why astrology is so beautiful, and you, on a complete different continent, can relate as much as I can, sitting here at Lake Atitlan in Guatemala. Even though we have a different reality, the energy has a similar effect on both of us, and of course, it individually brings up different themes, but the core, and that's what I hope to bring up with these talks always, that they are bringing meaning, support, and confirmation into your life as it does in my own life. So, this new moon is not just in any zodiac sign, it's in Aquarius, and that's why this introduction, because for me it has been very helpful to understand the precision of the equinox. And that's a little bit more complicated, but you can basically imagine that in our solar system, in our galaxy, we're moving about the black hole or the galactic center, which would be deserving a talk by itself. But the galactic center then basically being moved once around takes 26,000 years, roughly. And this also relates to the cycle of the yugas, which is also another topic, which I'm not going into right now. But basically 26,000 but divided by 12, right? That is like then we're moving through each zodiac sign then. And so you are realizing suddenly that we are not just moving in 1 year or in a decade into Aquarius, that this is more a question of a century and of a lifetime. It makes it much bigger than we are, and that's also then what I kind of want to share, because it will take time, and the question is not then when does it begin and when does it end, but we are in it. And that shifts slowly from Pisces into Aquarius, so it's backwards. And Pisces is this energy which we connect to spirituality, but what does that actually mean? It's such a big word to relate to, but spirituality in Pisces, or in Pisces sense, is much more where we're going into dissolution. The dissolution of the sense of me. Me as a person dissolves and unifies with everything. So as soon, like take one step away from yourself and there you are. You are everything. And that surrender is what Pisces refers to. And it's this feeling of union, this mystical experience where you are it. You are one with everything. You're God, source, spirit, your light, your awareness, whatever name you want to give it, because it's an experience in itself. And that transcendence can also be a confusion because you don't know who you are. And therefore you don't know how to act or what direction to go into. And that's what we are shifting from when we move into the age of Aquarius. Like you could say, in Pisces there's much more acceptance or confusion there, depending. Probably much more confusion, and that's what it shows where we are in right now. And this confusion is a crisis of connection. because this crisis of connection then reveals actually how we are in an outer crisis highlighted by this coronavirus, which is actually a wonderful opportunity or an invitation to really show that we cannot any longer go on the traditional path where we are gaining security or love or support or even the sense of knowing where we're going from what we are living by. And that normally comes from a relationship, from money, from functioning, from having a routine, from having an economical system in which we're feeling ourselves at home. But because we are having a crisis, suddenly we are forced to look somewhere for stability, and naturally, if the outer stability is not granted anymore, we have to look within. And that crisis of identity then comes up, because when we are looking within, and especially if you don't have done that before, if you never have been with yourself, because you have been so busy and so productive all day long in order to get your rent and to be happy with 60 years old, and that's what shows itself, then right now, probably by looking within, some old emotions, some old thoughts that have been stuck, that have not been digested, some old pain, some old stories, belief systems are coming up. And that's also perhaps like the beliefs of your parent, the beliefs of your society, of what you have been told when you were a small child. And that then is not more comfortable to being faced with than the outer crisis. So this crisis that we are in is like giving us no choice to actually deal with pain. You can deal with the outer pain that an old world is falling apart, or you can deal with an old pain that your belief system, your identity that you have been living by, or your past or your emotions is also not equivalent anymore. But either way, there is no way to run, because you have to face that call within. And I think that is what this new moon really has in store for us, where we are moving and from the Pisces time, and the Aquarian energy just even gets more of a jolt, more of an activation, and we are realizing that this pursuit of freedom, not of happiness, of freedom, is necessary for everybody. Because if you would say, well, in the old time, you're so egoistic, like how can you take responsibility for yourself, for your needs, and stepping in who you are, because that's so egoistic. But that's not true. That's just a belief system. And from a Piscean approach, you should dissolve completely and surrender and give and be of service. But what about if that commitment to yourself is the biggest service you can render? Because by truly knowing who you are or who you are not, this is actually a contribution that is in service for everybody else. And I think that's exactly what's happening right now. There is something that is awakening in us, and probably we would wish, or I would wish, that this would have happened before or earlier, but it just happens when it happens. And something is waking up that we can't deny. And that hurts, because we cannot just go back to the old relationship where we get love and stability, working place, place where we live, or whatever is the situation within you, like the relationship with your parents, the belief system of what's the way you want to live by. But suddenly there's something alive in you that wants to be explored, and that draws you so strongly to it that you have no other choice to drop the intellect and the questioning, and you just have to follow that feeling of waking up, of being alive. It's a sense of not understanding, but of knowing. And knowing and understanding are two different things, because understanding is like we understand different parts in itself, but knowing is the totality. And in that knowing is also what today is true might be completely different tomorrow, because we're only staying alive to what is true right now. And that is Aquarius, where we are going beyond. There's the bigger picture. And then there is really the question of like, what is true for you? And that is then bringing us back into that very moment, connected with our very selves, with our own soul. And when we're finding that soul connection within ourselves, we suddenly start to realize that that soul connection is actually connecting us not just with ourselves, from an egoistic perspective, but that soul connection then is connected with the soul of humanity. And with the world. And suddenly, by following what is true for us, we are doing the right thing for everybody around us. And suddenly, by not trying, by not thinking, by letting go. And that letting go hurts, because we perhaps have to give in into the uncertainty of life. And that maybe also means if you don't know, then stay in the unknowing until you know what's true for you. If there are still emotions, feelings, images that have not been worked with, not been felt, not been turned towards, then it's maybe not the time yet that you can say, I know what's natural for me and I can just step into it from a place of confidence, of playfulness, of curiosity. Maybe you're just pretending to know and you're working something out that you're trying to convince yourself, and therefore you're convincing others. But everybody can feel actually that's not true. And that's what we're in. It's not a place of where we can say, good, I got it, I know what I am, I know what to step into. It's like, no, this is a time to fall apart. And that's why we are getting overrun by retreat requests. People just want to have the time to be really aware of what's that inner process is. What does it feel like? What's happening with me? Am I getting lost? Am I falling apart? Well, actually, it's just something all is falling apart. The Pisces age is crumbling, and there is more Aquarian energy coming through us or around us, especially with this new moon. And that's why it's so important to suddenly realize that it's not something that we can grasp or get a diploma for or get an answer by the end of the retreat, but it's an attitude of becoming alive and starting to honor our own soul more than a book, than this YouTube video, by information, endless information out there, and becoming true to ourselves. And what that means, nobody else has the answer for, and that's why it's such a lonely journey, and that's exactly what Aquarius is. It's becoming the hermit that's taking time away to find out his own truth and then shares that with the community. And maybe it's not even his own truth, but actually, or perhaps finding out how he can, or she, or we can empower others do that by themselves. So that's my introduction to this Aquarian new moon. It's rich, I know, but it really it's very alive in me, and I can just feel how this is such an important time and such a beautiful time as well. But it includes holding perhaps a little bit more pain or crisis or not knowing or uncertainty that we are used to. But that's exactly what's happening right now, and it's okay to allow that process in your own terms and time, what is right for you. So with this, I will shift, and we're going to sit over there, and I'm going to speak about the new moon of today. All right then, let's move together into the birth chart of today on the 11th of February, the new moon in Aquarius that is just filled with Aquarian energy. We have Saturn here, we have Jupiter and Venus together conjunct, we have Mercury in retrograde in Aquarius, and we have the moon and the sun there in Aquarius. So this is the new moon. So packed, right? And then we also have the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, is here conjunct with Mars, squaring all of it. So what does that mean? So basically we have one side, Uranus and Mars in Taurus, who is saying, hey, come on, slowly, patiently, but at the same time, shake it up, like what is there within you, like bring it alive, bring it into expression, do something with it, integrate it, like change, like it's really asking you to step into it, like no more hiding. But at the same time, we have all this Aquarian age, which is like, sorry, not Aquarian age, Aquarian energy, which is asking us to wake up, to individuate, and also to kind of become aware that there is a vision within us, a voice, an intuition that we want to actually listen to. We would like to step into that if that's true, but we're not so sure because it seems maybe fresh. Can we trust it? Can we step into it? And if we're stepping into it, what will others perhaps think? And how do I do that? How do I shift? And this is perhaps for you, if you are an earth sign, then this can be a bit more challenging for you because you are perhaps tending more to status quo and to traditional approach, and maybe something outside of you, another person, the situation is moving you. But because there's so much Aquarian energy, you're going to be less rigid and more flexible than ever, perhaps, when you look at yourself. And if you are more an air sign, then you find yourself really excited because you finally feel something is becoming alive in you that you always felt intuitively, but you never could grasp. And now suddenly you're changing so much that it can't be fast enough for you, and you have to be careful that you're not just kind of waking up and being a completely different person than yesterday and nobody could follow. Even though it made sense for you, for somebody else from the outside, it's kind of weird. So that's where we have to find the middle way, as always. So we could go quickly to the individual planets just to bring more clarity into that. Saturn is here in Aquarius, which is actually great and wonderful because it makes us work with everything that is changing, that is shifting, and it's like what's true, what is maybe something that we just haven't had in our lives, and because of the repression of it, now we just want to step into the opposite extreme, but actually what is truly there that we want to feel as a continuation of an expression of who we are, and that bring that into our lives. So let's sit with it a bit longer. Let's not just have an idea spark and just jump into that, because we have a lot of sparks right now. The nervous system perhaps is really active and almost a bit frantic, where we are tending to kind of change too quickly. Let's sit with it a bit longer and feel into what is really there. Even though we had a new idea, is it still there tomorrow? We have Jupiter and Venus there together, which is beautiful, which is also bringing us into an approach of like what's worth living for, like almost a romantic, like what brings us beauty and love into our life, that we want to stand for, that we want to bring into our lives. And then suddenly perhaps, you know, like we could also say, and that is also Capricorn, Pluto here, squared by Mars, some old tendencies or some old systems, some old security forms that we have been living by in our lives. They're just not, they're dry, they are repetitive, they are empty, they're not full of meaning and love anymore. And just for that we have to bring change again into it, not because they're useless or they haven't had their time or meaning. It's just right now we're stepping into a higher octave of love and meaning in their lives, and that's where we want to focus on. And that can perhaps be challenging. It can be times of separation in all different sorts, and that separation doesn't mean that we have to be in fighting and in rejection and running away. That can be perhaps more like what I would be warning from, where we're running too quickly towards what's true from us without embracing the other. But maybe there is a need for honoring what was and simply expressing of that that's not wrong now, but that we are a different version of ourselves, that that's not any longer true for us. And then how can we gradually, and that's exactly the Saturn here, gradually move into that new domain? And that's where the questioning is right now happening. What's true? What do I want to move into? What do I want to let go? Can I do it in a harmonious way? Do I have to break free? Is there a fight and an aggression necessary? Or is there a way that we can actually both become more of what we want to, or like in general stepping more into what we want? And that's then the Mercury, where we really feel like what's true for us, what is really alive. And sitting with that, questioning that, and that's also where we need time to sit with ourselves. It's perhaps also a time where we feel drawn to nature, because in nature we become more natural. We are drawn to be with ourselves, because only by ourselves we can realize what's true for us, because we're not influenced by our surrounding. And that loneliness is really exactly the medicine that really helps us to find out what's true for us. And that doesn't mean that we have to run anywhere, but we just need some time to be by ourselves. We maybe don't need a separation, we just need to have some more space to then from that space to come back and see what or how we want to move on. And that's this new moon. It's all these sparks of new seeds that are coming to fruition within ourselves. And the new moon, of course, then that's what I just expressed. So this is a very beautiful, harmonious support here. We have Mars squaring Pluto in a trine. So it's also then how can we realize or see that some of this oppression, something that has been holding us back, is not something that we have to fight against, but what do we have to fight for that's true for us. And so how can we shift in a way of something negative that has been holding us back, and we are in confrontation and inner debate and anger and resentment because we don't feel seen or being that we could live who we really meant to be, versus like, well then, that may be exactly that restriction. And that's, I'm again going into that coronavirus, where this is a possibility or the perfect surrounding or the container to really see that pain, that frustration, that taking away freedom is really showing us what's true for us and what do we really need. And therefore, can we step into that? Do we have the guts, the courage, the trust in our own vision as well? Not just like waiting for somebody else to tell us what's true, but to trust our own intuition to step into that. And I think that then also, and that brings me into sextiling Pluto, Neptune, and Mars and Uranus squaring and sextiling Neptune. And I assume there's a lot of people who are listening to that who are already like healers, like artists, and people with a personal practice connected with spirituality. Then suddenly we realize that right now this time also urges us to not help others so much anymore. Maybe we could use our gifts and give them to others and share and be part of their own process. But right now there is a big shift happening with so much energy that we can actually suddenly acknowledge that there's a big process for ourselves happening. And even though we could help others and be there for others and support and facilitate change, this is beautiful. But actually what we need is really to understand and forgive our own pain, and to step into our own pursuit of freedom, to our own pursuit of what's true for us. And maybe sometimes that just doesn't allow us so much free time anymore for others anymore. But because we are walking our talk, hopefully, that means that we can be there on a later point, or simultaneously for few still. But it's not the priority anymore. The priority is our own walk. And that's then suddenly we ourselves need maybe a retreat, need to step a little bit back of our pedestal of what we represent in the world and what we are known by, because we in a big, I wouldn't even call it an identity crisis, but it's more a leveling or an adjustment of where we are walking towards. And if that's still accurate to what is alive within ourselves, in our own heart, and that spark needs to be set with. We need to feel if what's there, and that's the big invitation of this new moon. And I think it really sets the whole rest of the year of where we're walking and also what we're talking. And maybe if some people just continuously doing the old way, that will have some consequences later in the year. So I really want to urge myself to take this time to allow to whatever is alive, to honor, because it's the heart speaking more than ever, to walk our own journey and to step into our own truth. And only if we are following that, true freedom, true happiness can occur, because we are staying true to ourselves. So this is the Aquarium message for today. I hope it came out well. And yes, as always, please give me feedback, and thank you so much for your support. And please share if you like. And I wish you a beautiful day, and I hear you again soon. Goodbye.